going on, guys? Welcome to... Wait a second. What the heck is that? No! No, please! No, it doesn't make any sense. We can't do the joke here. They don't know that these people transform into animals. God, no!
In the morning, I'm making waffles.
I don't wanna know, baby. I don't wanna know, yeah.
Will somebody shut that bloody roar up? Welcome to Ponzi Gaming, where we review games that have fallen under the radar, and today we are going to be reviewing Bloody Roar, a Japanese action arcade game that came out early 1997. You feel old yet? Before we go into the ins and outs of everything in this video, I want you all to do me a few favors here. Follow me on Twitter if you haven't already. Hit the bell so that way you can stay notified as to when I'm uploading things. Shiny Celebi is in the works, and I also have another tutorial for Pokemon coming out as well, so stay tuned for that if you want to see what that one is. Like this video, and I would hope that you'd share it if you found it interesting or funny in any way. And if you did find it funny, you have a poor sense of humor. Without further ado, guys, we will get right into this thing.
The early days are fighting games.
Well, actually, the Street Fighter series and the Tekken series both launched well before this, so your standard fighting game genre was already fully developed. In fact, Tekken 3 was actually released just a few months before Bloody Roar. Made originally in Japan, Bloody Roar is an arcade-style action fighting game, if you weren't able to pick up on my context clues earlier, that released in July of 1997 for arcade systems. Then, it launched for the PlayStation in North America on Halloween of 1997, a very fitting date to launch this game, with everyone in-game having the ability to transform into some sort of animal or beast, as the game titles it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's dive into the mechanics of this game. Overall, this is your standard button masher. Square to punch, X to kick, and you can combo them with different directions to achieve different variations within each moveset. You have a health meter, a rave meter, and then a beast meter. The rave meter is in the form of two little bubbles like you see on your good old-fashioned Scantron in school. They fill in when you can rave, and I don't mean in the kind of rave. Instead, it increases your speed and damage for a short time and ends when you are struck within your rave. The beast meter goes up as you dish out damage and take damage. Once it is full, you can then transform into beast mode. Every character in this game can transform into a beast of some sort, and each one is different. When in beast mode, your health can be regained up to a certain amount, and your damage is increased as well. There are 8 playable characters in this game in total, so only a tad bit of variety to choose from. I will say that this pales in comparison to other fighting games of the time in terms of selection. Again, Tekken was on its 3rd iteration, looked a bit better, and had a greater selection of characters. Thus, it was more refined, etc. Now, I'm just being a critic.
Everybody's a critic.
This is a fine fighting game to pass the time. That being said, I probably got more tilted at this game than I do with a lot of other modern games. You'll probably see more losses than wins within this footage. Sometimes the game controls weren't responsive, which is to be expected. I understand that, it's a little older. But other times, mechanics just didn't make sense. Please tell me how one blocks a grab while facing the wall and not facing me. I'm very curious and want to be enlightened. Meanwhile, I could never block a grab in general, but every CPU found a way to block mine. I mean, I'm pretty trash, so maybe I'm a bad example. Let me say this. There's nothing like the thrill of destroying your opponent after getting extremely salty. With that said, here is my Get Wrecked compilation. One thing I would like to give this game props in has to be the soundtrack. Honestly, I'm impressed with how well the music sounds. I like the sort of hard rock aspect that they brought to the table, and it definitely helps set the mood for each fight. There were, however, some inconsistencies in the audio, and not regarding the music, but every character had a line or two of dialogue that was voiced from them. The strange thing is, it sounds awful. The announcer, the music, the ambience, all professionally done, sounds great. The lines of dialogue, you can barely hear them, and they sound like they were recorded on a potato, and then that potato was stuffed into a PlayStation 1, and the hum of the fans that are keeping the system cool were overpowering each of the characters speaking, and then they took that sound effect and put it into the game over the actual dialogue.
Mother knows best.
What?
Mother knows best.
The moans and groans of fighters kicking the crap out of each other sounds absolutely fine, but when we get to the victory lines of dialogue, something's off. I'm wondering if it was because it was originally made in Japan with different audio, like, originally made in Japanese, but maybe they just couldn't master the audio in time for the American release. I'm not quite sure. And the graphics of this game are not half bad either. Obviously, I have them cranked up a bit in RetroArch, but that's another story. And speaking of story, have you hit the bell and subscribed yet? Oh good! Now you've done what we need, so that way we can move on to the actual story elements that this game has to offer.
Here we go!
As mentioned earlier, this game has 8 different characters, each with their own ending after completing arcade mode with them individually. Don't worry, this isn't a story that you'll have to buckle up for.
Buckle up!
But instead, I've compiled what I've pieced together from the plot after completing it with each character. To start, here are the 8 characters: Yugo, Gadu, Bakuyu, Mitsuko, Long, Alice, Greg, and Fox, otherwise known as Hans. The main theme of this game centers around zoanthropy. Oh, I hope I said that right. From what I've pieced together, in the Bloody Roar universe, there is a company called the Tyron Corporation. The Tyron Corporation conducted illegal experimentation regarding mind control and the aforementioned zoanthropy. From what I've gathered, humans and zoanthropes, oh boy, exist within the universe, and the company's experiments are to blame for all of the zoanthropy, but not explicitly stated. Starting with Yugo, otherwise known as Yugo Strange, not really. His mission is to uncover the circumstances of his father's death. He finds out after meeting with Gadu that his father was also a zoanthrope who spent his life fighting the Tyron Corporation. Gadu is a professional mercenary who was best friends with Yugo's father. He ends up being the cause for the Tyron Corporation's downfall. He actually gets arrested for destroying it, but in doing so, it allowed the police to recover all of the evidence of everything that they've done between the zoanthropy and the illegal mind control experiments, and then he was released from jail from then on. The final boss in the game, Yuko, she's not actually a playable character, so I didn't mention her earlier. We learned that she is actually the daughter of Mitsuko, and after defeating Yuko with Mitsuko, say that 10 times fast, the two live happily ever after as a family. Would honestly be much sweeter if I didn't lose to Yuko over and over and
billions
of times. Bakuyu is an evil mercenary who ends up being tested on by the corporation, uses his powers to kill, and then turns into a big old pile of mush at the end because he's unstable. Long is a man who ran away from his Chinese family and roots due to neglect. His mom and sister died back when he was a young child, and his father paid no attention to him. He ends up running away, becoming an assassin, then locks himself away, unable to control his zoanthrope blood. Zoanthropic?
Yes, me too.
Alice is actually my favorite character to play as. She's extremely fast. She packs a mean punch. And believe it or not, I actually had to look into her story more, as the game doesn't really explicitly mention what happens to her. They make it seem like she woke up from a dream and that none of this actually happened, but that's not actually it. She was kidnapped as a child, but by another institution, and experimented on, brainwashed, and trained to be a fighter. She eventually escapes, is adopted by her Aunt Mitsuko, and then dedicates her life outside of her schoolwork to destroying the institution that kidnapped her. Greg's just a gorilla. No, actually, he's a ringmaster who wants Yugo to join and become the main act in the circus, using his zoanthrope powers as part of the show. How he fits into any of this, I could just not tell you. Why add a character that you're not gonna give a little bit more backstory to? I get that he has the same kind of blood and he can transform, but come on, man. And last but not least, Fox, or Hans, is a man who is obsessed with his own beauty, who was abandoned, impoverished, and forced to grow up as a street thug. He calls everyone else around himself ugly, sees himself as the most attractive being alive, and in the end, kills his own mother in his wake. Oops. Well, that's pretty much the story of this game in a nutshell. It's really hard to piece everything together, as the game doesn't explicitly say what transpires that causes the zoanthropy in humanity. Only some are affected, but it seems to have been jump-started by the Tyron Corporation. That's what I'm gathering here, folks. Let me know if you guys have any better inclinations down in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the bell, subscribe, like this video. Please stay up to date on this channel. I've got so much more good stuff in the works, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye!
What's left of me? What's left of me now?